All right, guys, we're back for part two here. So we got the female force. Right. With men fighting at the front, women took their place at factories and farms, offices and shops, and changed their lives in our civilization forever. Okay. Um, I keep wanting to bring up the theme, okay, in the world wars particularly, but you could argue even like other wars, right? The Civil War, but particularly the wars of the 20th century, going onward, Korea and Vietnam and the first Gulf War, however you want to put it. These events always they change so much of not of your society, of your country, right? A lot of the things that are bedeviling us and doing a number on us were strengthened by these conflicts. Okay, um, you still have some dissident right people, even like taking, which I cannot believe, right? The orthodox view of the world wars, even now, while trying to square the circle. These wars were there's nothing good about these wars. Dysgenic, but also the technology. I keep saying, like in the last video, they set up a lot of what you have now. So we go here and we got, what's this? Oi, what is this? Son? Oh, it's a lady copper, right? Look at that. So it's like, um, and I like here you have right previously constricted by long hobble skirts, right? Remember the Edwardian period, the fin de soleil. Like you see the women back then with the big hats and the hobble skirts, right? Women's fashion adapted to suit to the new working environment, right? Like you said, the men are gone, so the women are taking the place, entering. I mean, the workforce in areas that were traditionally men. You had women working, of course, in factories, right, and working class women, unless they were pregnant, right, and nursing, they were always working. But the interesting thing here, you have like the Philomena, right? Some of us are aching to do something to do our bit for England, and right. In the quote, I like how her name is in quotation marks. This could be the goddamn editor for all you know. It could be a man, you know. You know those British, right? Her frustrations were felt acutely by thousands of women around Britain, right? The men who had marched off to fight had left behind empty office desks, unplowed fields, and conductor-less buses, right? Beyond maintaining existing businesses and services, there was additional requirements, right? So, you take your labor, right? You increase the labor pool. You're setting up, of course, your wages being lowered, but you're also setting up a world where equality, in quotation marks, is coming, where women are going to do these jobs that men did. Okay, only because it's only technology making it possible. There's going to be no resentment or any kind of upheaval of gender roles, or how a man looks at a woman and how a woman looks at a man, and vice versa from this. Right? So it's interesting who the Scottish doctor Elsie Inglis, right? She wanted to form a women's ambulance unit, but was famously told, "My good lady, go home and sit still." She ignored the instruction and set up hospitals. Right? Okay, so the patriarchy didn't stop her, right? But the point I'm making here is that, of course, you have a class issue, right? The agitation to be given war-related employment stemmed largely from the middle-class female population, the bourgeoisie. Right? The working classes were already used to working, right, in service, right, mills and factories, right? So you see also the middle class, the bourgeoisie, right? The agitation that leads to your feminism. The funny thing about this whole magazine too is not once in this article was there a mention of course, right, the advent of war had brought an immediate truce in the fight for women's suffrage, right? And Miss Pankhurst lent her full support to the war effort, right? The Women's Social and Political Union, the full support of David Lloyd George, right, the Prime Minister, right, the liberal, I think the liberals, the Democrats, liberal Democrats, I don't know what they were called. I think they still exist in England, but they seem to, it's mostly Labour and Tories at this point. But they don't mention the white feather girls who are all feminists, suffragettes. The women threw in their lot, not the working class women. They did what they could. and some of them actually suffered from this TNT poisoning. Right? But the middle class, the bourgeoisie women, right? The feminists, the suffragettes, well, they thought, well, we'll do our part for the war effort, right? And the white feather girls will shame men who are not in uniform. We'll give them a feather to show that you're a coward because you're not fighting your cousins in a war, an industrial war. Not mentioned at all in this magazine, right? And of course, at the end, right? They got their right. They got their we did your thing, and now you quid pro quo, right? Women aged 30 were able to vote for the first time in 1918. Of course, in America, this also happened. And of course, it would be almost another decade before women gained complete equality with men and gained the vote at 21. And that's the end, Jack. That's it. That's all. That's all she wrote. So it was right. From hobble skirts to freedom, right? So when I keep mentioning like you see the women with the hobble skirts, right? Well, now, right, the increasingly active effort in the war effort, right? Just like the Second World War. Listen, all your northern migration from the south into the cities, right? The war really kicked that in high gear. If you know what I'm talking about, I'm kind of not mentioning what that northern migration is, but I think you could figure it out in America. That was all because of the war, all right? You're already setting up your slaughter of cities. So, and of course, the women are now free. And also, you had women wearing breeches and trousers, right? Pants, right? Sake of safety and practicality, right? So by the end of the war, the corseted and restricted shape of Edwardian fashions have been replaced by looser, lighter dresses and skirts. So they're ushering the free and flirty fashion in the 1920s. So you already see now. I'm never gonna confuse symptoms for causes. I'm never gonna say World War One happened and then this all happened, but the forces were happening beforehand. But this is the manifestation of this historical conduit, this force that acts. Once you have this, once you uncover the female, you give her the right to vote. Well, then you're just bound to have what you have now. Yeah. Anyway, so business as usual. So you're still selling products. Right? Is this Tilak and Burberry? Oh, Burberry, right? Burberry is like the it's that weird. It looks like plaid, right? It looks like yeah, but it's weird. It's like a really expensive thing here. The brothers, the sisters like that a lot, but I don't know. It's bigger in England, but they're still selling stuff to you while you're getting shot up, right? Look at that. Oh, this is triggering to me. How dare you show this? Yeah, or this for England, home and beauty. Oh God, if you're British and you see this, man, and you have a brain in your head and you know what's happening to your own country. To see this, to see any of this. I mean, you gotta imagine this is made for an older audience. When they're looking at this, they're probably like, they're looking at what their grandparents or their parents remember. Whatever. We all have our own country in our countries to deal with. Look at that, the womanhood in wartime. Oh, what a beautiful woman. And look at this. This is very crass, right? The tank handbag, an original cross novelty. It's made in the shape of the tanks, right, in the quotation marks, which have attained to public fame today. Right, the new look at this shit. This is a really powerful thing, man. So, it's bestiality. Oh, come on, dude. This poor horse got killed in the combat, and this guy probably trained the horse, raised the horse. It's very poignant. It's very poignant. So the animals, dog. The animals. They don't know. I mean, they've always been used to our history and warfare, but of course now the demise of the dachshund, the sausage dog, was popular in Britain during the Queen Victoria era, right? But the breed's German origins, the fact that Kaiser owned two of them, led to his decline, right? The dachshund to be mocked. All right, hold on a second. I have to use editing. Hold on a second. Now we'll keep going. Okay. The Dachshund began to be mocked. Oh, you racists! They're your same blood. Right? The Dachshund was seen as quite unpatriotic. Right? So now the bulldog takes over. The poor Dachshund. Right? So now we have now we're going into the first British tanks. We're going into the heat of battle, the different weapons. Obviously, like here you have the tank. Oh, he's rolling over the German. Oh, that's great. That's something you want to see, right? So, and I won't lie, man. These tanks, the Germans really were freaked out by these tanks. Okay, if you look at the battles, I mean, half the tanks stopped working after a couple of minutes, and eventually the Germans destroyed a lot of these things. I mean, the British tank corps, a third of those guys died. Okay, these things were like hardly protection. But they always freaked the Germans out, even when they were fighting them and destroying a lot of them. It always had an effect on them, okay, which was reflected in the Second War. Right? And this is a cool picture here. Now, these are photos. This is a photo, right? These are Canadians, right? The motorized gun carriage, the machine gun carriages, these things were actually built in just outside of Philly, in Ardmore, okay? Where one of my buddies lives near. These were built in Ardmore, these motorized gun carriages. They're armored, right? And they have machine guns on them. It's interesting that only the Canadians had these. And then near the end of the war, they actually started being used more. These things actually were pretty effective from what I've read. So this is technically one of the earliest armored fighting vehicles that you have. Built in 1914 already. So I think the Italians were first having the armored cars in Libya. But anyway, enough of the armor nerd stuff. You don't want to see that. You want to see the artwork here, right? So we're going to wrap this up now. Of course, America gets in there. It's funny, America, she's got black hair. It's interesting. It is Britannia, right? Just as her Roman conqueror from millennia ago. Anyway. So America enters the war, right? Listen. There's a whole other story. Public opinion in the U.S. had been against involvement, okay, and of course, once they got the propaganda going, the whole Wilson administration. Literally, I mean, if there's a book you should ever check out, you could probably get it. You download it for free. War Socialism by Murray Rothbard. That's right. Yeah, I know. You're like, oh, Rothbard. Rothbard was right about a lot of stuff. Okay, I wouldn't say I'm a libertarian or an anarcho-capitalist or anything, but Murray Rothbard was right about a lot of shit, dude. Just say it. And war socialism, you see what happened in the United States. Okay, Jonah Goldberg sort of ripped that off for his book a little bit, and how America essentially for a year and a half literally became a fucking totalitarian regime. Okay, but that's for another story. So, and of course, the lost generation. Listen. The British lost like 900,000 men dead in this war, right? And you have like the Roll of Honor. You see all these dead men. What a fucking waste. What a waste. And you have like the war widows, right? And some of these women were widowed more than once, right? They're never going to get over that, right? So now, of course, I'm going to bring up the obvious, which you don't have in this. I mean, what's funny about this magazine is there's no, the Germans are literally like an unknown thing. 900,000 dead British soldiers. You had freaking 2 million plus dead German soldiers. Okay, and you can imagine the stories there. Okay, and one thing here too, right? In the heat of battle, war had no respect for wealth, privilege, or status. Right. One of the things that's always like, a stereotype was like you had the working class going over the top and getting shot down, which was true. The problem was that, and you always had this in the British Army, to be frank, your aristocrats and your upper class men dying at a very high rate as well. These men were not in the back. These men led the charges. These men risked their lives. No one could ever talk about the British officer class, the upper classes who went into the military. You can never question their bravery, and a lot of them died in this war as well. Okay, so just wrapping it up real quick. Shout out to the Italian artist who lived in Britain, Fortuno Matania. Look at this artwork. He was like one of the best artists they had. Look at this detail, man. All right, a painting level detail, and you got some cartoonists. Oh, yeah, old Bill is like, "Ugh." Right. The ladies like the officers, yeah, yeah, they do. And you got the oh look, look, they're like drag queens at this point, right? Isn't that what we fought for? Hmm. All right.